Alright guys, this webinar will be recorded and we're talking about trend lines today. So what do you guys know about trend lines? Let's talk about it. What are trend lines? What are they used for? Whatever you guys know, type it out. Low is saying a form of support and resistance. Diagonal support and resistance. What else do we know about it? Can you guys still see my screen? Amika is saying trend lines are dynamic SNR. Wormhole is saying I only use them to draw the highs and lows of the periods I'm focusing on and for support and resistance. Okay, so everyone has a different answer. It could go a lot of ways. So let me ask you guys this. Looking at this chart, this is USD CAD on the 4-hour. Now looking at this, would you guys say this is a trend line right here? This at the bottom here. Would you guys say this is a trend line? Yeah, right there. All right. Anybody else? Is that a trend line or not? Let me draw it out for you guys. This right here. You say this is a trend line? Wormhole is saying yes. Anybody else? Come on, guys, let's make it interactive, please, so nobody's time is wasted. All right, so everyone says this is a trend line. Now let me show you guys something. So we clearly see price coming down, but I want you guys to focus at, let me zoom in. So this, yeah, it looks like a trend line, but that's just too easy. We join the dots and it's a trend line. That's like how we used to draw when we were kids, joining the dots or numbers, right? So if we just join this, yeah, this looks like a trend line, but why not this one? Why is not that a trend line? Or this one? I can join it here too. So how do we know which one's correct? Because if any one of that is correct, like I could have taken my trade based on this, or before that candle came, I could have had my trend line like this. And then this last red candle, this one, after this, the red candle, and if I had my trend line like this, just how we're doing it right now, this would have been a breakout for me. And if I didn't wait for the close of that candle, I would have entered a long. And look what would have happened to my long. That's 35 pips right there. So trend lines are not that easy. Now, this one, everyone's saying looks like a trend line, the bottom one. Right? Now let me show you guys why it's not that simple. This is on the 4-hour. We see this trend line. Now, I want everyone to focus at this point. I'm going to draw a line there. So we clearly see the prices have been coming down from here. It came down till here, and then it came right back up. Now, let's pretend the chart after this does not exist. Let's focus at the end, two candles on the side over here. So we have that trend line, but let's pretend the price doesn't exist. Markets have been coming down. We see the last red candle, and then an identical green candle comes, the price comes right back up. Then the third candle opens up, tries to go down. It looks like it will go down, but comes back up, closes on top of that. There's just a wick. Now, if I draw a line here, what does this tell you about the price? Does this area over here, these last three candles, tell you anything about this?
Yeah. Buyers are taking over.
Man, you saying something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I say looks like buyers are starting to take over.
This looks like buyers are starting to take over. Anybody else? Wormhole is saying looks like a reversal. Yeah, guys, let's type it out so the recording is clear for everybody. Price should be going up. Okay. So we have all that information, but let's move. Price did go up, but it came back down. It's been respecting that price ever since. But now, forget about that line, focus on your trend line. Now, suppose you didn't have this line here, and 80% of the people would have drawn this trend line looking at that. Because most of the people think we should just join the tails or wicks, whatever you want to call it, and that's our trend line. And sure, it does look like it's been respecting it. But now let me show you this, why this trend line is not true. Keep this price in mind and why I drew a line there. Even before I knew the price is going to respect it, I put a line there just to see if this price is going to mean something. Now focus on this blue area over here. This is on the 4 hour. Now let me go to the daily. Look at that. That's just a wick. That price does not exist. So your trend line means nothing to the people who are driving the market. Do you see the point I'm getting at? So if you drew a trend line from there, that means nothing because that price doesn't exist. Yes, it came down on the 4 hour, but it came right back up. And on the daily, it's just a wick, which means that's a fake out. Now we go back to the H4, which is why this trend line is not correct. You have to be aware of your surrounding support and resistance areas and what the price is doing. So in this case, this is just the support and resistance level. And look at that, it has been respected after that. So this is the most simple way I can explain the trend lines. Now let's look at some more examples. Anybody has any questions so far? Does this make sense, or was this something you already knew? Wormhole is saying it makes sense. Anyone else? Should we only draw trend lines on the close of candles? Yes, an open candle means nothing. If a candle is still open, that means nothing. Wormhole is saying, how do we draw trend lines on uptrends or downtrends? Don't be carried away with uptrend or downtrend. Trend lines will give you an idea of how you should draw them. Now let me show you here. There's another example right here. Now, would you say this is my trend line? The crosshair that I have drawn right there. Would you say that is a trend line? Yes. Anyone else? Low is saying before today, yes. Amika says no. All right, so that trend line, that looks like a legit trend line to a lot of people here. But let me show you something now. Markets have been coming down. This was the low they made, but price came back up. And this area has been respected ever since. This area over here. Now, if you take this price, markets did try to make a higher high, but they never really made a higher high. Markets were just consolidating there, and the price came right back down. So now, let's try and draw a trend line from here. Not that, but this price never existed because it came right back down after all this consolidation. So let's draw it from here. Now, how do I know if I need to touch that or like this? Which one looks correct to you guys? Is this a correct trend line? As compared to this trend line that we were talking about, I drew this one. Is this a correct trend line? Wormhole says no. Jennifer is saying not through the bodies. All right, so this is a rule everybody gets stuck on, that your trend line cannot go through the body. It can. Why? I'll show you right now. Now, we see at the bottom, this support and resistance area is being respected. This blue area right here. Wormhole is saying, used to think you only draw it over the wicks. Yeah, I'm explaining that right now. Because we just drew here on the wicks, and we see that was a fake. So we cannot depend on the wicks. We just established that. Now we're establishing if we can go through the bodies or not. But look at this. Pay attention to these areas. 1, 2, 3. Now from here the market was trying to come up. It slowed down a little bit in this blue area. Did go up, but it came right back down. Do you guys see what I'm trying to get at? I can draw a line right here. And can I say the price never really went above this? Because it did break the trend line here, came right back down. So this area on top doesn't really exist. So am I really going through the bodies? Does that make sense? Or is everyone confused? And look over here. My trend line and my support and resistance being respected. So you cannot just get stuck on, oh, it has to be through the wicks, or I cannot go through the body, or it has to be on the body. These are just nonsense rules that industry teaches us, but it doesn't make sense. Because if I drew my trend line this way, from here, I would have missed a lot of moves on this one. But since I know this is my actual trend line, I can clearly see it. Because at this point, I could have entered a long if I had the first trend line. And what would that long give me? This. My long would have ended up 115 pips down. Any questions so far? Let me clear the screen. Does that make sense so far? Or any questions? Amika is saying we might have to do one more example. Yes, we are going to do another example. Let's look at Euro USD if it's showing anything. All right, now here. Let me see. All right, over here. Would you say this is a trend line? If I didn't tell you what I just did, would you say this is a trend line? Amita says yes. All right, let me draw it just, and we're on Euro USD 1 hour. Let me draw this over here. This over here. Connecting the wicks. All right. Is that something you guys would have drawn? Is that a trend line? Well, you're saying no now because we already did a couple examples, but before that, would you say this was a trend line? Because we're joining the wicks. All right, so now if we just join the wicks, then look at this price over here. It came down, came right back up, has been consolidating here. Tried to break again over here. No lower low, came back down, has been consolidating over there. Then again, price tried to break down, came right back up with this green candle. So let me just draw a line here. I don't know yet if this level means anything or not. I'm just gonna draw. Oh, actually, sorry, that's that's over. Yeah, over here. So this over here. Now, based on my wicks, this looks like a trend line. But does this price really exist? Now we see it came down, didn't make any lower low, came right back up, tried to make a lower low, went back up. So this level might mean something, but then we see the more candles opening. Then we see all these tails at the bottom. Same thing over here. Price comes down. Now it finally broke this, made a higher high. So let's draw a line here and see if that price means anything. So now we're taking our trend line from this wick, but over here, price came down, came right back up. Does this price really exist? Let's check on the 4 hour, all these areas. That was the third one I drew, and look at that. That's just the tail. So if we actually just followed the wicks, this doesn't tell us anything. But now let me go back to 1 hour. And when I move this trend line over here, now I'm going, sorry. Now I'm going through the bodies, right? And when it came down here, I'm still watching because first candle breaks, it has to close, and the other candle has to show me something for me to enter a short. All right, it doesn't. It breaks, price comes right back up. But I know I have a minor support and resistance level here too. So I have to be aware of both the levels. And over here, once I start seeing these wicks, and I see this minor support and resistance level is being respected, and I see this green candle, I could have easily entered long, and look at that. 50 pips right there. And now let's check this trend line on the 4 hour if it makes more sense. Now look at that. Would you say this makes more sense now? Because earlier we joined the wicks, but that price doesn't really exist. So if we kept honoring the previous trend line around here, we would be thinking of selling because it would look like the price is trying to break our trend line. But in reality, that was just taking stop losses according to this actual trend line. People would have bought here, everybody's stop loss is gone, and then the price goes up. Does that make sense, or do we have any questions? All right, I guess there's no questions. And now, just from the looks of it, look at it right here. 80% of the people would take this highest point, call this their trend line. Or, if you're more aggressive, you would call this your trend line. The price broke, you could have bought it. Right here, you would have bought it. Just here. And look what would have happened to your buy. It would have came right back and taken you out. Because if you bought it here, your stop loss would have been here, and they would have been taken out before it actually went in your direction. So your trend lines can impact your trading a lot. Right, Lois saying, I get the concept, but confused on where to draw it. Is it just drawing it on the higher time frame? Low, you can draw it on any time frame, but one thing you always want to keep in mind, let's say you're trading the 1 hour time frame, you can draw it on the 1 hour, but you always want to check it on the 4 hour, that if it looks correct to you or not, or does that price actually exist. Do not just go by the simple rule of joining the wicks or joining the bodies, or I cannot go through the bodies. None of that matters. You can go through wherever the hell you want as long as the price makes sense. Now look at this. People would have drawn this right here, but your actual trend line here is this right here. This is your actual trend line. And this price doesn't exist. Because this is 4 hour. Let's check on the daily. Just a wick. So your actual trend line was that. Right? Does this make sense? Wow, this was actually a beautiful example. I didn't see that before. Look at this. This price would have tripped so many people. Emeka says, does it help to change the line chart before drawing the trend lines? Might make it more visible. Emeka, that's completely up to you. I prefer candlesticks, but that's totally up to you. You want to do line charts, sure. So you see this here? This is a beautiful example. You could have drawn it like this, but if you knew that price doesn't exist, you would have went like this, and that's your beautiful trend line. Does this make sense to everybody? Anybody have questions? Let's hear them. Let's go through them. Now look at that. Now that is your proper trend line, because that price actually exists. Let's check, because we're on the 4 hour. This meeting's about to end, guys. We might have to start another one. Well, Emeka, you cannot just say it simply avoid spikes while drawing trend lines, because if it's a live market, you don't really know if that's going to be a spike. So you have to be aware of your support and resistance levels. And it brings us back to the same thing. We have to wait for the candle to close. Because at this candle, this was going up. You could have participated like 95% of the retail traders. And look what happened to your buy. It came crashing down. And if you drew your trend line over here, you would have never caught any of the nice moves because price never even came to your trend line. But now we draw it here. We ignored this price completely. We're cutting through the body. Look on the daily. Does that trend line look perfect to you guys? Now that trend line broke, Like I said, Euro USD is going to come down to 1160 level, and then you guys can enter a buy there too. That's your free trade right there. Which is why I said everybody to sell from 1.1 2000 area over here, because that's your support and resistance level too. So now you see, I don't just call out some trades from out of the blue either. This is my simple trading. I don't really use a lot of fancy stuff or any such thing. This is what I do. There's a lot of people on the buy who do not consult the higher time frame. They would be looking to take profits this area around here. But the price is never going to get there because that's just a spike. It will after it has retested this area again, and then we're going long for good. Does this make sense to everyone? Are the trend lines clear, or do we have any more questions? This is a small topic, but I wanted to cover it because I saw a lot of people drawing trend lines wrong. So you always, no matter what strategy you're using, whatever the hell you're doing, one time frame above your chart is your godfather. If you're trading 4 hour, you think the price is going to go down, but on the daily it looks like it's going to go up, the price is going to go up. That's the rule of thumb. Because for us little players, yeah, okay, this might even look like a range. Look at that. Look at that. I can draw these two lines. Well, we already have one here. This can look like a range. Here, one here, then here, then here, then here. And this could just look like a fake out. So you have to keep all of this in mind. Because look at this, prices were coming down. This could look like a range to you. Someone on the 4 hour might be trading it as a range. But people on the daily, they know once the price hits here, they're getting ready to buy because they're in the long-term buy and the price is in the buyer's market. They don't care about your wrong trend line that you drew here because they know they're controlling the market. Does that make sense to everyone? This is about to end in about 5 minutes, so if we have any questions, any concerns, let's go through it quickly. I know you said draw on the candle closed, but the trend line is on the wick. Do you start it on the wick? It really doesn't matter. It just matters on your perception of the price. It really doesn't matter if it starts on the wick, on the body, or through the body. Play Fruit Ninja with this, nobody cares. You cut through the body as long as you're respecting the price. You have to be aware of your support and resistance levels and what the price is doing to draw your trend line. If we just connect the dots, that's just too easy. Because, okay, why not this? Isn't that a trend line on top then? Like, look at that. If I didn't know my support and resistance and my time frames, that's a trend line. Oh, sorry. Where did this come from? Okay. All right, so that's a trend line. Or I could go like, that's a trend line. Or that's a trend line. 1, 2, 3. I could do 3 trend lines. It all depends on everybody's perception, right? But once you're following the price and your support and resistance levels, this is your proper trend line. Only this one. Everything else doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Any questions? Let's do more questions quickly. We have 3.5 minutes on this one. Else we can start a new one if we need to. Let's check out another example quickly. And one thing that I always like to do, don't bother with tiny trend lines. Always look at it at an area where you can see some sort of momentum in the market. Like look at this. Isn't this a trend line? But does this tell you anything about the momentum of the price? All these candles? They don't tell you anything if the price wants to go up or down. It's just consolidating there. So you always want to make sure you're looking at a bigger picture. Don't bother with this tiny, minute details. They don't matter. Because all this is just noise to the guys on the 4-hour. Look at that. That's just two candles there. And the trend line I tried to draw is a vertical line. So that means nothing to them. So always look at a significant area. All these tiny things don't matter whatsoever. Any questions, guys? We have 2 more minutes. I hope trend lines are clear and this was valuable to everyone. No questions? All right, I guess everyone has trend lines pretty clear. And I guess let's talk in the chat. And everyone, I've had a couple people telling me that next webinar we should do on trading psychology. So if everybody wants that, let me know, and maybe next week we can do it on that. So we have 1 more minute, so now's the time for your questions. Or whatever webinar we want to do next. Can you go over momentum, please, how to measure? I cannot really get into details. That is not fair to my private students. But I'll tell you this, look at the candles and look at your support and resistance levels. That gives you details of your momentum. Like look at this. That's so much power compared to this over here. That tells you something about the price. All right, guys, meeting's ending. I hope this was valuable to everyone. Let's talk in the chat room and have a good weekend.